It's also linked, though, to a fond appreciation I have for history and some research that I did when I was with the squadron several years ago that uncovered some original VMF 225 pilots and the stories they shared with me about their adventures that they had with this aircraft during World War II, and the stories that shaped our squadron legacy. One of those original members is Major Byron Tony Comstock. He's with us today in the front row, and his stories mimicked a lot of the stories that I knew as I grew up, the stories that my father told me about things that happened to him when he was in World War II. Now, and things are the way they are. But what I learned from him and his stories was an understanding of history and appreciation for those men and women who met incredible challenges in defense of our country and who shaped what we have and what we come to know, or what we know as liberty. And those are the folks that we remember today. What I'm really here to do today, though, is tell you a story. And if you bear with me, the story begins in World War II when three men, very much like many, were called to duty. The first was a man named Jack Nearhood, and he was a northern boy from the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and he joined the Marine Corps shortly after the start of World War II. After attending pilot training, he found himself attached to VMF 225, flying Corsairs, and is on his way to fight the Japanese in the Marianas Islands. As a squadron was coming together, Walt Disney was designing and contributing their artwork to the war effort, and they actually drew a drawing of a boxing kangaroo for the squadron logo and the mascot. But according to one of the vets, the boys found that a little bit too cutesy, and they decided against it. And reportedly, Jack is the artist who put pencil to paper and the death dealer dealing a USMC card as the mascot of VMF 225 was born. It took a lot of luck and a lot of time and the right people to help me understand the history that put together that story. And it's important for me to share it with you today so that this small part of our heritage lives on as a reminder of the bonds that bring men together during the events that shaped our history and the sacrifices they made for freedom. I know that so many stories are important parts of our heritage as a nation, Navy and Corps, and that are important for us to remember, are embedded and live on the USS Midway Museum. And those stories...
I first flew the F4U in 1943. It had a birdcage canopy, and don't know what those are, I'm sure. The most exciting experience I had in World War II began when Major Jack Amendi, our commanding officer of 225, asked for volunteers to go aboard an aircraft carrier for an extended tour. I was one of 24 pilots who volunteered. That was one great aircraft. I loved every minute of the 600 hours I flew in it, whether I was in combat or out. So I'm happy to see what this young lady has brought to our flight deck in a moment. And I want to thank all of you people for sitting out here and freezing in today's weather. God bless America and Semper Fi to our Constitution.
Fantastic. We've been looking for this airplane for 5 years. I mean, F4U Corsair is one of the most famous fighter airplanes in the Navy. In fact, it made the Navy to a lot of people's opinion. So we've been looking for one of these. We've been dredging Lake Michigan. We've been scouring the country. Most museums don't want to give up a beauty like this. But for me personally, well, I told you I've been a docent on board for 5 years, and now I have to completely change my rap because, as it turns out, I was a Corsair pilot too, but I was a Corsair 2 pilot. The plane you see sitting on the port catapult right over here, a little light attack jet. So now when I come on board, I can no longer say I was a Corsair pilot because that's the Corsair. But it's a fantastic airplane and we're so happy we got it. And someone said it wasn't painted right and nah, that's all right. It was a Marine airplane too. A little bit, yes. Let me tell you, like I mentioned, we were scouring the United States for an F4U Corsair, and we finally found one, believe it or not, in pieces, in boxes, up in Bakersfield, California. Literally boxes. And this woman, and she spoke today, said, well, we would maybe we could come to some arrangement to get this plane aboard the Midway. We don't own this plane. We don't own a lot of the airplanes on board. They're on loan from various other places. So she agreed to loan us this Corsair today. So that's how we got her. Now, of course, it needed to be refurbished. What's the word you say? Restored. There we go. And all of these airplanes I see on the flight deck here are all restored over here at NAS North Island, done by professional restoration crew. We have our own guys that work on it, of course, but then in the final preparation is the painting job, and that's an important part of the whole thing. We keep these planes painted up authentically. We don't just let anybody put whatever. We got different squadrons and that stuff on, but they're very authentic paint jobs. The F4U itself?
Yes, sir.
You bet. Again, World War II vintage airplane. A lot of people remember this as being one of the Pappy Boynton. Remember the Black Sheep Squadron and those guys, the Flying Tigers? This is the plane they flew. And it came along in the war, and it was kind of like the tail end of the war, just when the war was ending. Of course, you never know when the war is going to end, but it saw most of its action in the Pacific, off of the Midway. Well, the Midway didn't see any action in World War II. It was commissioned in 1945, but this F4U Corsair certainly saw a lot of action in World War II.